What's the best advice that someone has given you and that you sort of, I guess, pass on to others, especially around obviously the pool game?
Okay, so there's two parts of this. The best advice I've ever was given was by my dad in around 1996, where he said to me, "Son, I wish you all the success in the world, but if you ever come home big-headed, I don't want to know you." So that's the best advice I've ever been given, full stop. Now, I'm sure one or two people would have their views on me that doesn't fit the criteria. I'd like to think that I'm not arrogant. I try not to be. I try, I'd never, I try and just be as level-headed as I can. Sometimes you can fall and slip into conversations that you don't want to now and again, but I'd like to think that I've stuck to that advice as best that I can. In terms of on the table, I've got a lot to thank Rob Chilton for, no question, because I think in 1997, I was 17, I thought I was an average junior. There was certainly better juniors than me. Certainly Chris Mellin, a fellow called John Sanders, who won the national championships, a fellow called London, John Sullivan. I felt there was a good 3 or 4 just in the UK that was better than me as a junior. Between 1997 and 99, my game really kicked on, and I started practicing with Rob Chilton, a fellow lad from Dudley, former European champion, former UK Tour #1, won televised tournaments. Rob was the 1997 European champion, beat Keith Brewer in the final. So what a time. What a time to come on the scene. There was a new club that had just opened in Stourbridge, which is a borough of Dudley, who was owned by a fellow called Paul Dunkey. Jason Priest was his partner. Paul Dunkey was an England international, was the county captain, all that kind of thing. I played for them in the Interleague and the Super League and all that under Paul. I got on really well with him. He used to take me to some of the tour events as well, along with Rob. So it was a really good time to really get on the scene. And then on the national scene, Mellin was just hitting his peak. Darren Appleton was taking over from Keith and Lee Kendall. Carl Morris and Phil Harrison, they were the 3 new kids on the block that was taking it on from the older generation, for want of a better word. The rules had just changed. So just in time for me, the tip-tap rules had gone. The world rules had come in. A young kid who kind of wants to go for everything, if you like. And then Rob just really pinned down the crux of the game, the tactical side of the game, the shot selection, the explosive kind of invention of shots. And one of the shots, actually, Arfan said to me, he said, "When you play that ball in off another ball, to open the game up," he says, "Oh, you're the best I've ever seen." I said, well, I'm not. I said, "The lad that showed me how to do it's the best that I've ever seen at it." And that was Rob. So he showed me a lot of shots. He learnt me about the game. I picked up a lot of things from Rob. And another bit of advice as well, which I would give as much as anything, not so much somebody give to me, was that back in the day you didn't have the luxury of YouTube. So now you can go on YouTube and you can watch. Like somebody said to me, cue ball control, put Phil Harrison on. Technique, running out the balls with exceptional consistency and clinical, put Gareth Potts on. Want to see somebody shot making, explosive talent, vision, put Chris Mellin on. Put Rob on. People, you want to see fight and grit and determination, sort of Nadal-esque or Selby-esque, put Darren on. You want to see pure talent and ability and cueing ability, put Jason Twist on. Tactically, put Keith Brewer on. And I could go on and on and on. I know I'm missing people. It's nothing personal. But I could go on and on and on with it. You're so lucky that you've got that opportunity to do that. In terms of in my day, 96, 97, 98, when I joined the circuit, I had to sit and watch them. Darren Appleton versus Keith Brewer, table 12. You know, all the lads would be, Mick, what you doing? We're going for something to eat. I'm watching Darren play Keith. It'll be all right. We'll come back to it. I'm watching Darren play Keith because I wanted to learn how to play. I wanted to know why Darren played that shot. I wanted to know why Keith played that shot. I wanted to know how they both acted when they were up against each other. You know, give back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, and what you got to understand as well is there's a difference between watching from an entertainment point of view and watching because you want to learn. If you're watching because you want to learn, you've got to sit there and really study what they're doing. Sit there from an entertainment point of view, watch Chris. He'll entertain you all day. So yeah, you know, you've got the entertainer and you've got the professor, haven't you, if you like. So if you want to be entertained, watch the entertainer. If you want to really get deep of how you want to be playing the game, you know, across the board, then you want to watch the professor who, you know, was the likes of Keith, was the likes of Greg Farron. Lee Kendall was clinical. So I grew up with all those guys and I couldn't get enough of watching them. So, yeah, off the table is what my dad said. On the table, Rob's probably, you know, give me that much information. There's too much to mention, to be honest with you.
Okay, in your, I guess, earlier years when you were, I guess, an amateur pool player and, you know, decent player, I guess, and you were getting better as the years gone on, was there a pivotal moment where you went from good to great? And can you pinpoint that and what, you know, did you recognise it and, you know, was it making it, you know, the England team or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
was there something that you could pinpoint?
So when I do the exhibitions now, I do a Q&A session and it's a question that gets asked a lot. When you're doing it yourself, you sort of don't. I mean, let's take, for example, I mean, I have my moments with it where I go to the gym and I go on a bit of a fitness kick and whatever else. And you go back to the gym, you've not been for ages, and, you know, you can barely do 10 minutes on the treadmill. But then you keep doing it, then you do 15, then you do 20, then you get to 25. At my peak, when I was about 2015, when I was a lot fitter than what I am now, I could do half an hour, a 6K or 5K, 6K or whatever. It's a pretty decent speed for, you know, a young fat kid that was overweight for most of his younger life. And then same when you go, you know, you lift a few weights, you know, you get to a decent level, you don't go for 2 or 3 months. You've got to start at the beginning again. And you might bench press 20 kg, and then it goes 25, then it goes 30. But there's no exact moment when you go, oh, well, I'm strong again now. It's a progression. And when I started out, like I said, I thought I was quite an average junior player, a decent junior player. I know I kicked on between 97 and 99, as I've alluded to, because of Rob Chilton. But where I kicked on to where I then started to reach the Darren Appletons of the world, who was the best player in the world at that time when I joined the tour, no question. Where did I go from being a good player to competing with Darren? Just a process, just a process of, you know, climbing the mountain. You know, you don't climb Mount Everest in one go. You go so far, you set up camp. Then you go so far, that's your base camp. Then you go so far and so far and so far, and before you know it, you know, if you're any good at it, you reach the summit. You know, that's how it is. So I never quite know where I really made the big kick on from being, again, saying that I'm right or being big-headed, but what stage did I think I got to Darren Appleton's level, who was the best player in the world at that time? I don't know, other than the fact of when I was playing him, instead of getting beat every time I played, I started winning a few. And I started winning a few more, then I started winning a few more, and then I started to believe, well, I must be as good as him then, because, you know, I'm winning matches against him now, and I'm winning tournaments, and so that, I guess a little bit of that is a little bit of the proof's in the pudding, where, you know, you don't have to convince yourself anymore, because you're winning the tournament with all these great players, and you may have beat Darren in the final, or Phil Harrison in the final, Jason Twist in the final, keeper, and you go, right, well, I must be on the level then, because I'm not just winning every now and again. And somebody did say something to me very good friend of mine, Ty Bradley, who was a very good player around this area, certainly in the 80s. And he said to me, he said, winning that World Championship once isn't enough, don't you? You've got to win it again. So if you don't win it again, one's not enough. He said, anybody can win one. He said, loads of people have won one in different sports and games because it could be your time. He said, but a multiple world champion is a totally different thing altogether. He said, so I'll leave that with you. And it did stick with me a little bit. It was like, well, just to win one would be nice, wouldn't it? But I thought, well, yeah, there is loads of, there's loads of snooker players that won one because on that fortnight they played really good. There's tennis players that have won one slam. There's golfers that have won one major, but never won anything else. So I thought, yeah, I sort of see where he's going with that, and I quite liked what he said. It helped me sort of plan out what I wanted to achieve and make a path. But in terms of, was I all of a sudden bad and then all of a sudden good? Probably not, but I don't actually know, to be quite honest with you.
You're renowned, I guess, for your pattern play and the mental side of the game. Yeah. How much do you think that's an advantage at multiple levels, I guess, in terms of the physical versus the mental game, whether it's shot selection, the patterns versus just being able to cue correctly?
Well, I mean, when you first start playing the game, the target of the game is whoever gets the 8 ball in the pocket first wins the game. That's essentially the completion of the game. That's the task of the game. But I got to a stage where I thought I need to try and do a bit more to kind of not entertain myself, but to almost like give myself some enthusiasm to want to be doing what I'm doing. So rather than just sort of potting the balls and getting the 8 ball in the pocket, I thought, well, wouldn't it be like so much nicer if you actually got them in the pocket how you intended, like from the start? Now, I know people do map the balls out or whatever, but they still have got a variable of, well, that'll do, because if I'm there, I can take that one. And if I'm not quite right, I can take that one. And I used to think, well, that's not a proper challenge. The proper challenge for me is I want to number the balls 1 to 8 before I've even potted one. And I want to take the balls in that order. I now feel like I'm never going to master the game, but in my mind there was times when I felt I've mastered that. The game of 8 ball is asking me to take the balls in that order as far as I perceive it, and I've actually took the balls in that order. And I actually put the cue ball where I wanted to each time within an area, within a 10 pence piece, essentially. So it was like, wow, for that small moment in time, I mastered the game. It's always got me back. It always wins in the end. But that was my that was what I wanted out of it. I wanted to feel the adulation of I've got you. Today I've beat you. I've beat you today. And I suppose I just went on from there. I mean, there is an element of OCD. It's a good thing, bad thing, because sometimes you can try and be too perfect. But when it's right and you're absolutely on your game, you do feel like you can play to nearly as perfect as what I believe the game is asking you to do. And in the commentary box, you often find yourself, because it's not about berating players and slating players. I mean, they're nervous, they're under pressure. It's not just a case of, put the cue ball there, why didn't he go there? I mean, come on. But you do often sit in the comment box and you go, yeah, there was something going on there that player maybe didn't quite see. And if that player had been alluded to that, would that player now actually put that in their mind and moving forward make them a better player? I had a wonderful compliment off Arfan Dad a few weeks back, where we were at a friend's house, we were just messing around on the table, and he played a couple of positional shots, and just jokingly, it was a Friday night, I've gone, well, that's not good enough, is it? You should be here, you should be there. And he laughed and joked about it. And Arfan, over the last 6 or 8 months, our fans thought about it and implemented it into his game. And he gave me a wonderful comment. He said, mate, he said, look, I know we're only messing around. He said, but I feel like my game's gone up about 30% because I'm looking for the natural angle now. I'm looking for the natural lines. And he said, when I'm watching other people play, it's highlighted so much that I can see that they're not looking for it and they are making the game harder to play. And I said, well, that's really nice, a really nice thing to say. You know, I think the pattern play is, it's the game. It's like, why else are you playing? You know, you're playing to try and be the best that you can be. I go back to one of my heroes growing up as a kid, Bruce Lee, watching him in the movies. Simplicity is the key to brilliance. You know, fear the man that practices one kick 10,000 times, not, you know, 10,000 kicks once. You know, and all those type of things sunk in with me, where I thought, yeah, I want to understand the cue ball. I want to understand how to play properly. So, from my point of view, the pattern play is everything in terms of running out the balls, and your shot selection is so important because, you know, Steve Davis made a really good point. You know, it's not how good your A game is, how good your B game is. So when you're on your A game, you can do what you want. They all fly in the pockets. When you're on your B game, you've got to find a way to win. And that's where you need to play certain shots and change your shot selection to how you feel at that given time. So there's not necessarily a right or wrong shot. There could be a shot for what the scoreboard is, how you feel at the given time. Are you nervous? Are you not playing so well? Do you not quite fancy it? All these different things. And I felt that when you're playing team events, because there's only one frame, particularly when I played for England, watching Keith and Lee Kendall and those guys, one frame, absolute granite to beat over one frame. Because they'd play a little tactical shot, they'd cover the pocket, they'd play a little snook, and you're going, why didn't you attack there? And they go, just wait 10 minutes. It'll all be revealed. So I learned a hell of a lot from them playing in the England team over one frame, because your shot selection becomes so much better.